that this is a multidisciplinary area that I'm trying to focus on. And the paper for today is titled Queendom, the Legacy of Begum, Hazrat, Mahal and Women's Leadership in Colonial India. Now, why do I choose to write? This is neither my subject nor particularly my area of interest for any intended research. But the reason is that a lot has already been said and discussed about her. There is this compelling need that I feel to speak about her from the perspective of somebody who was born and brought up in the area of capital called Garden Reach, where every alley has either an active or a dilapidated mosque, which has some or the other title Shahi in it, and we were told that this was in the time of Hazrat Shah. As a Shiite Muslim, my association with the Sultanabad state is again very personal and very long. So this association actually compels me to talk about the lady who saved the day for Awadh when the king moved out and was in exile in Kolkata. Also, exactly 20 years ago, her great-grandson, that is Dr. Nayyar Qadar, who was then practicing at the Temple Bar in London, a silver-haired prince, my first crush with royalty, you can say, had commissioned me to write something about his great-grandmother. So I have been working, and this is just one of the many areas that I have been focusing on for Begum Hazrat Mahal. I hope that this particular presentation actually, if nothing else, generates a little bit of awareness about her. You know, history, the collective of human experience, tends to be biased in its forgetting and erasure of many who deserve inclusion and celebration. The whole objective of writing on Begum Hazrat Mahal is an exercise in rediscovering the glory of the warrior queen who pioneered the resistance put up by Indians for the dignity and survival against the colonial British rule, and of whom very little accurate information. This is the crux of my paper. Very little accurate information is available about her. From the apologetic pages of history books that seem to be conscious of not having done enough justice to the Begum. I attempt to re-envision her contribution to women's leadership at a time when the first flush of flux was seen in the social, political and economic structures of the Indian society, moving towards a modern system of governance and survival. I will just move on to another factor that I want to mention here. You can trust what is there in the paper because everything has been cross-checked with her family and with the artifacts and documents that they possess right now, especially her great-great-grandson, who is Kamran Mirza, the son of Dr. British Qadar, who was a very famous historian and professor in Aligarh Muslim University. I'm sure many of us are acquainted with the name. Now, there are so many myths and misconceptions that have been associated with this lady. One of them is that who was she, from where did she come? And it is very obvious that an accident, a stray accident, led her into the life of Wajid Shah. Now, her relative with whom she was residing after she became an orphan was a maker of Zalif caps. And it so happened that he was so much into this kind of customization that if the person for whom the cap was intended was not wearing it, somebody else had worn it, it would immediately be discoverable. Like it was that perfect. So as a child, she happened to wear a cap, and then the cap that was intended for the prince went away and the mistake was caught. Now in that, there were two women who were called the Marasis, women who were then involved in educating young girls in music and Kathak and the customs of court, so that they could eventually be included in the harem if the king was pleased with them. So she was again taken by Amman and Imam. These were two Mirasi women. Roshan Tati, in his book Lucknow 1857, Two Wars in Lucknow, just the leader writes that she was discovered at the house of her relative by these two women. They found her very beautiful. They got her in eventually she made her way to the harem, and apparently the king was so infatuated with her that he wrote in his own book poetry for this wife of his, mind to marry. So what was the infatuation all about? He says, and I quote, "Wasaadat jo amman ne maman ne ki, mere ghar mein aayi zare khani, पसीना खुशबू में उसका गुलाब, बड़ी थी महक उसने पाया खिताब." Translated, it means, what mediation Amman and Maman did. A homely girl came to my house. The sweat was smelling like rose. She was a fairy and got the name Mahal. So, what I want to highlight here is that how did the transformation take place from Zane Khanvi, the woman who is supposed to be the Grihastha, the Grihini. He was so fond of her. He calls her Zane Khanvi. Khanvi means Shongshar, if it translates in Bengali. Okay? So, he says that she is the Zane Khanvi of all these women. And then she transforms into a warrior queen who put up a resistant mind. She and the story did not end in 1857. It lasted till the day she lived in exile in Kathmandu. She refused to bow down to any of the machinations of the English government, and despite the best effort of the colonial looters, they could not bend her courage or her resistance. Just the mere fact that she responded to every overture of the colonial masters with a complete and absolute negation and no, ensured that she became the emblem of resistance. How many minutes do I have left, sir? 2 minutes. I will just quickly, wrap up what I was trying to say is, now there is one great misconception about Begum Hazrat Mahal, and in fact they are wives of Hazrat Shah. You see, propaganda is such a potent weapon when people are trying to control public opinion and public memories. So this was given out that Wajid Ali Shah apparently divorced his wives before he left Awadh. Why is the focus on Awadh? Because that was the last cherry that the colonial masters were waiting for to drop into their mouth, because it was the most endowed and the richest state or province that was beyond their control. And then it had legal heirs, and quite a few of them, right? So, did the king divorce Hazrat Mahal before leaving Awadh? When Awadh was being annexed, it was generally believed that the Queen Mother Nawab Malika Ishwar and the wives of Wajid Ali Shah, that the better thing to do at the time was to surrender to the situation, except Begum Hazrat Mahal, about whom Wajid Ali Shah writes in his diary, in exile in Fort William in Calcutta. He says that मेरे महल में एक ही महल है जो कहती है कि अपने हक के लिए लड़ना चाहिए, वो बच्चा भी दूध नहीं पाता कि जो रोकर माँ से नहीं मांगता. So translated means that she insisted and she encouraged and she sort of held on to this idea that the resistance was at no point to be given up on. And she told her husband and her king it was better to stand up for your rights, because beside for example a child who would not be given milk if he refused to cry out and express exactly what he needed. If I may just conclude, on February 11, 1856, Awadh was annexed by the East India Company, while Nawab Wajid Ali Shah was eventually ousted. Now, in Awadh, when the king was not there, the main domain of politics and armed warfare, mind you, was suddenly invaded by the Begum sitting on an elephant in the battlefield. The much is said of Rani Lakshmi Bai, who has been insufficiently and deservedly so, because I can't emphasize this enough. She may have died of a stray bullet, she may have had an adopted son, but her resistance and the true bloody Mardani image that we have in our mind is actually a symbol of resistance. But again, having said that, though much is said of Rani Lakshmi Bai, who has been sufficiently and deservedly praised for a dauntless fight against the British, Begum Hazrat Mahal's contribution is understated and even forgotten. The image of the Rani sitting on a horse with a sword raised valiantly is an iconic image in our collective knowledge and understanding of our own history. However, little importance is attached to a woman who was a queen of far bigger province, a proper queen with a legal heir, a queen who made it impossible for the Angrez to Mahal and safely scraping out each one from the residency and ensuring that no Firang was safe in our while she was there. Now, why do I call her an icon of women's leadership? Why do I call her an icon of women's leadership? Because she was the one who came out onto the field at a time when even the Queen Mother was not supposed to go beyond the Barda. So her breaking out is actually an inspiration to many women who then followed suit. They were not as impactful, they are not remembered, some of them are not from there, there are some history in the chronicles of the time, but it is very clear that she definitely ignited a fire that has always been held up. Her great-grandson, Dr. Prof. always likened her to Joan of Arc, who came out of nowhere and ignited the whole scene against oppressors. She was alarmingly capable, without any military training, of leading an army of thousands of the soldiers who were not commanded by her husband. That's very strange. She was alarmingly capable, and the British knew that in her they had fought before. So as Russell said, she has excited all our. If I were to conclude with the permission, sir, Begum Hazrat's legacy is one of courage and clarity in times of uncertainty, danger, and threat. There is no evidence to suggest that she had any prior military training, yet she managed to achieve an all-important victory against a trained and arrogant imperial army. One can only imagine, like old writers of historical fiction, the sneers she must have elicited from the patriarchal society, or the weight of the fear of failure that must have accompanied her attempts. Yet, she rose above all and carried herself with dignity right until she reached the grave. Her poor nameless grave that one who is not to hero like her deserved. Her life is part of national history, must be remembered as an exceptional tale of valor against an unjust oppressive power. No communal or regional bias should come to raise to others writing about her. Thank you.
Any questions on that? No, I don't mean I can hear you. No, I listened to your presentation. It's really excellent. I'm so happy. I never knew this lady Begum. I never heard of her. Is anyone who has heard of her before? First time with hearing. I mean, why? I mean, my question to you as a researcher, why we did not hear? Is it because of the contradiction within the Muslim society, or is it because of the historians, the bias towards women, or the colonial power? They neglected this kind of rebellion from the past. I don't know how to explain in a very short, one or two sentences, why we did not hear that before. I mean, I'm really so impressed. I feel like reading about her as a historian, but you know that, one or two sentences, why we did not hear that?
Thank you, sir, for a very pertinent and direct question. Sir, there are three factors we have to keep in mind. When there is an oppressive power, you will agree to this, be it any time, any society, any culture, any civilization, there will always be a political narrative where there is an oppressor and then the other oppressed. The oppressor has this habit of changing and denying history. Since they cannot delete it completely, if I were to ask my English ICSE books what happened for the past 100 years, they would have had to give me something, right? What is that something? That we promote the lesser ones so that the greater ones are forgotten. Why is it so that the greatest heroes are always the ones who get the least celebration? Because always the one who stood second is remembered. Because that is the way oppression works. We are going to take away your heroes so that you're not inspired. And we are going to give you something else, something inferior, something lesser, something more moral in history. Second reason why we do not hear hear enough of her because the maximum of writing about her has been in the language that we are now diverse with, that is Urdu. So that again makes it regional. Third thing is, of course, the patriarchal society not being very excited about her, and she being in exile, she was not here. So I can assure you that every single sentence that is being approved by the family has been included here. Her family is here, the descendants are here, and they are very, very sensitive about ensuring that there is recently a book that has historical fiction about her, which is not only romanticized, misrepresented, but also sexualized her relationship with Wajid Ali Shah. And her great-great-grandson, Mr. Kamran Mirza, told me that I don't want to read this book, my grandmother. You understand? He said, please steer clear of it, ma'am, don't indulge in it, because it is not fact. It is all imagination. And he also passed a steer saying that you are from the field of literature, so you will have a natural affinity to it, so steer clear. That's what I did. So the whole point is that the oppressors made sure that a woman who out of nowhere, from behind, a very flimsy veil of Mahal in a Lucknow palace, came out and routed them completely. I used a word here, I think, which may not have registered with a few of us, arrogant imperial power. She was a slap in their face and a nudge in their chest. She couldn't do much, she could just leave them out for a few months. She had to go to exile, she had to save her son, but what she did was too big of an embarrassment, which is why I wanted to steer clear of her. And the books were very happy not writing about her. So that would be my explanation if you are satisfied.
Thank you so much. I'm really impressed with whatever you say. Thank you so much.